Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be with you today. A special thanks to Jair Lynch for joining us, and I could not be more thrilled to be spending my afternoon with Urban Alliance interns. You all are absolutely our inspiration as a staff to work each and every day on your behalf. I'm Veronica Nolan. I'm currently the interim CEO of Urban Alliance. I have actually been involved with Urban Alliance for over 20 years. I was the previous CEO for 14 years, and I've been a board member since 2014. I'm excited to launch this year's Leaders Like Me speaker series, which we began in 2020, and it was specifically created as an event led by our students. This is an opportunity for students to connect directly with national leaders of color who work in various industries in public, private, and nonprofit sector. We appreciate the participation and support of our Urban Alliance community, our staff, mentors, board members, and all of the students, especially from our regions. I want to extend my special thanks again to our guest, Jair Lynch, who, as I shared with him earlier today, he was phenomenal in being one of the first people that we met with back in the day when I first became a CEO to brainstorm what would make great internship sites for Urban Alliance. So the reason I want to share that with you is there are so many people who've got your back and are cheering you on and helping you get these internships. And it's exciting to meet one of those people today, who's personally also provided 6 internships for our interns. So without further ado, I would like to introduce one of our fabulous colleagues, Taylor McClary, who joined Urban Alliance in our Detroit region as a high school internship program lead in May of 2020. Before joining Urban Alliance, Taylor worked with several community engagement efforts spanning from national to student-led organizations. She's received her Bachelor's of Arts in Africology and African American Studies from Eastern Michigan University. So special excitement for all of our Detroit interns as she represents you all. She's a former teaching assistant and a policy advocate intern. She brings forth knowledge in community-led education and a passion, for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So please, without further ado, allow me to welcome Taylor and pass the baton over to her. Thanks again for a fabulous event. Thanks for all for joining us.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. I am Taylor McClary, as was introduced, high school internship program lead in the Detroit region. Before I introduce our moderator, Jayla Cole, I want to share a few important housekeeping items. We are recording today's event and it will be posted on our YouTube channel in a few short days. So please be sure to always keep your sound on mute. And I want to ask that you please put your name and region in your Zoom. So if I can give you 10 seconds to do that, that would be great. Just start working on that, your name and region. To all of our students, please stay on the camera during the entire event. We want to see you. I am excited to introduce our student moderator, Jayla Cole. Jayla is a high school internship program participant in the Detroit region and interns at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Jayla is a senior at DeKalb Technical High School and active in various leadership roles, which includes mentoring young people after school. She was also selected to serve as the cheer coach for the River Rouge Junior Panthers. Jayla also volunteers in her community at the nonprofit organization, the Vision of the Youth, to support and uplift the children in her community. And she plans to pursue a medical career in pediatric nursing. Let's all welcome Jayla Cole.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jayla. Again, thank you, Taylor, for introducing me. So first, I am very excited to moderate today's Leaders Like Me speaker series. Again, I am delighted to introduce our guest speaker today, who is Jair Lynch. Let's all give him a round of applause. All right, so Jair Lynch is president and CEO of Jair Lynch Real Estate Partners. Mr. Lynch has more than 25 years of experiences as an investor and developer, including projects in Silicon Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and most recently, the Southeast. Mr. Lynch is a driving force for urban regeneration, working on walkable urban places to empower people, develop places, and create prosperity. He has a BS in civil engineering and a BA in urban design from Stanford University. He was also named a James L. LeBeau Fellow at Harvard University's Graduate School of Design. He also serves with various boards and committees. Let's welcome Mr. Lynch, and thank you for being with us today.
Great to be here. I'm glad to be here with all the students.
My first question for you, Mr. Lynch, is tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? How did you choose your career path and the journey to start your company?
Well, I grew up in Washington, D.C., son of immigrant parents who came from Colombia and Trinidad. And we grew up with values such as education and excellence and giving back to communities. And I really learned at an early age the servant leadership model, in which you're really connected to where communities are and you're helping people along the way. I went to school out in California at Stanford, as you mentioned. And I first got there thinking I was going to be a doctor and was going to go into medicine. But there was a long learning passion that I had, and it was very simple. I was playing with Legos, thinking about places, traveling the world. And when I got to Stanford, I realized that I could put that to work in real estate and could be involved with real estate placemaking and development. And so I studied civil engineering and urban design, as you indicated. But more importantly, I took a very traumatic experience and used it to my advantage. In 1989, I was just arrived in the Bay Area, where they had one of the largest earthquakes in the world, which is Loma Prieta. You might be hearing about earthquakes right now because there was a 7.8 earthquake that just happened in Turkey and Syria that has left thousands of people, unfortunately, have died. But it shows the power of what's happening in the world, especially around climate change. And I was involved in the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989 with a 7.0. And it left all kinds of scars in Oakland, where a freeway collapsed, in San Francisco, where many buildings collapsed. And fortunately, we were able to take that tragedy and turn it into a learning moment. So much of what I learned in civil engineering and urban design is how to pull a community back together when there's a new scar. When I came back to Washington, I actually saw some old scars that were there because in 1968 there were many riots that happened in Washington, D.C., where many people of color were very much fed up with what was happening as it relates to civil rights. Were very much distraught after what happened to Martin Luther King and others. But those scars were there for almost 30 plus years, scars in the middle of the city. And I wanted to come back to Washington, D.C. and make a change in those places and make sure that stitch back those scars and make sure that there were communities in which they could grow. So I started working in neighborhoods in the Shaw neighborhood, in the 8th Street neighborhood. But many of you have seen these type of neighborhoods in your community as well, because many of the unrest that happened in the 60s remained dormant, and there was disinvestment in many of the cities that we grow up in. And so I wanted to make a change in those places and have dedicated my career to doing that, as well as other places throughout the United States for the last 25 years.
That's so great. All right, so I have my next question for you. My next question is, what are some of the critical skills, characteristics, and experience that one must have to advance in their career and into a position such as yours?
Well, there's a set of core values that we believe in, and that is a commitment to excellence, diversity, teamwork, as well as many others. But those are the three main ones that we think are really important. The ability to listen, to be able to work in a team, the ability to have discipline and be able to create excellence. And then also just, all around just being curious in general, I think is really important in any career, at any point in your career, whether it's at the front end or a more mature situation like myself. We want to make sure that we're creating servant leaders that are curious, that can be respectful to everybody at all times, but also can actually be innovative and creative. To be able to create competitive advantages is very important. And that is a skill set that you have to have as part of being a leader, and whether you're the CEO or a senior management team. So I think everyone has to concentrate on those three things as they build their careers.
Great, I understand that one for sure. My next question for you is, a leadership position comes with many achievements as well as challenges and tough decisions to make along the way. How do you navigate through your decision making?
Well, one of the things I had to realize as a CEO is that you're responsible for the futures of many people. And that's not only the people who may be employees or associates at your company, but also the people who you may be housing, folks that you may be employing at construction sites, all of that matters. And I'll never forget one of the stories that I had early in my career. I went and spent time with a resident council in public housing. And we had the ability to bring a new community center to that neighborhood, and which was going to bring hope to that neighborhood as well. And we were able to sit down with the resident council. And one of the things that the president told me was, we love your ideas, we love your plan, we love the fact that we're going to get something. We just hope that we're going to be here when you're done. And that was only 3 years forward, for us to be done. And that fragility of life is something that I find that has stayed with me for a long time. And so we want to make sure that we're creating upward mobility for everyone, whether they're a resident, whether they work for us on one of our projects, whether they work in property management and operations. Each one of those cases, we want to create enough stability where they know they're going to be there 3 years from now. They know that they're going to have a career down the line, and they know that they're going to have upward mobility over time. And through that lens, we're able to set up not only the strategy for the business, but the operational components to make sure that we have inclusive hiring, that make sure that we have economic inclusion in all our projects. And we're making sure that we're being good stewards of the environment. As I mentioned before, a lot of people are looking at many of the hurricanes, the earthquakes, as well as the heavy storm surges that are coming from climate. And so we have to be conscious of what we're doing throughout our work every day and how it has impacts, not only at a block or a building level, but also across the world.
Great. So my next question for you would be, what would you say is the toughest lesson you have learned in your career, and how did you handle it?
Well, disappointment's not easy to handle at any level, whether it's within your family, whether in academia, but it also happens in the workplace as well. But in each one of those cases, I've been able to recover. I'll never forget, there's an old saying in the boxing world that Muhammad Ali was not the champion because of the punches that he made at the top, at the beginning of the ring. It's when he got up, when he was knocked down and he got back up and he persevered. And that's what made him a champion. And I think that that's something that I've had to learn how to deal with on many occasions. And in each one of those cases, you're humble enough to learn from those mistakes and learn how to be better. And with that, you're able to excel in anything that you're doing.
I really like the quote that you used about Muhammad Ali. That really stuck out to me. Okay, my next question for you is, what do you wish you had known starting out? What would you say to your younger self, and what would you do? Would you do anything differently?
Well, there's a couple things. One, from a financial perspective, if you don't know what the compounding interest is, you need to go look it up, because it basically suggests that the earlier that you start saving is the better you will be in terms of a financial condition, whether it's paying for college, whether it's retiring. The earlier that you save, the better. The second thing is that I really didn't understand the importance of relationships and how they can really help you. And I can look back on my career, and there's probably half a dozen people that really took an interest in my growth, took an interest in my ideas, and put me in positions in which I could help them, often in a volunteer and again in a servant leadership position, in which I could actually show my worth and actually be able to excel. And so it's really, really important that you are constantly thinking about what I call your Rolodex, your network. A lot of people use the word network, and it comes from a wide range of people, and being able to stay in touch with them. I never understood the concept of sending a holiday card, but being able to stay top of mind to someone, sending a thank you note, sending a handwritten thank you note after meeting with them. You have to stay top of mind, and you have to create real connections with people. And when you do that, you can foster conversations, you can foster ideas, and often accelerate your career as a result of it. So between those two ideas, I think I would have been a much different person. I think I've gotten to each one of those places, both financially as well as emotionally. But in each one of those cases, if I had embraced that at 16, 17, 18, 19, where you think you're invincible and you think you can solve all the problems, you don't recognize that there are a lot of people along the way and a lot of shoulders that you're standing on, whether directly or indirectly in the generations previously. And as long as you're paying homage to them and acknowledging that and making those connections, I think you'll have success over time.
Great. Taught me that networking and connections are very important. So my next question for you is, did you have role models or mentors while in high school and or college? If so, how did they impact your personal or professional life?
Well, it's a combination of things. As you can imagine, you can start with your parents. I was lucky to have both of my parents in my life for all of my younger career and as well now. But if you don't have both parents in the household, there are lots of other places in which you can find mentors. Whether it's in the next circle out from your family circle is school, you can find mentors there. Whether it's in the academic world or the sports world, a lot of people use the social services that are in their neighborhood, whether it's a recreation center or others. I was involved with sports, and that came from just going to the YMCA. And a lot of those coaches that I worked with served as mentors, not just for the sports that I was involved with, but also in terms of life in general. A lot of people don't realize that there's a tremendous amount of transferable skills throughout all the pieces of your life, whether it's cleaning your room at home, whether it's being on time for practice, whether it's doing your homework. All of those things are part of it, what they call executive functioning. It's a nice fancy word of just being able to actually get stuff done. And when you're able to get stuff done and you're able to translate that from each situation, once you start getting to the workplace, showing up on time, asking questions, following up, not waiting for someone to tell you what to do, but actually setting forth a plan. Each one of those things are things that you may have learned all the way through your adolescence and your teenage years. Now you need to utilize it in both work and or college.
Thank you for answering that question. It was very informative. So my last question for you on my behalf is, this year, together with my Urban Alliance peers, we will soon graduate from high school. Some of us will go to college, some of us will enter the workforce or attend trade school. What advice do you have for us as we get ready to start on the next phases of our life?
As I mentioned earlier, there's a sense of entitlement and being invincible at this age. There's a reason why they convince people to join the Army and jump or join the Marines and jump out of planes. There's a reason why people, go run marathons at 19 and 20 years, because they think they're invincible, and oftentimes their bodies will allow for that. But that also means that young people often take more risks than older people. I was very much affected by the loss of Len Bias in 1986. And many of you may not know him, but you can Google him. He was one of the top prospects in basketball coming out of the University of Maryland, which is right next door to us from Washington, D.C. But he died of cocaine after the draft. He was a top 3 draft pick that was going to go to the Boston Celtics and had a tremendous path, but died partying from cocaine. And that really, really stuck with me in terms of taking that unnecessary risk could have massive consequences. And unfortunately, at this young age, you're learning to balance feeling invincible and taking unneeded risks, and being able to bring that back in and actually being very clear through your mentors, through what you've learned at Urban Alliance, what you've learned at school, that there's a path. And as long as you're on that path and not taking those unnecessary risks, then success will be there for you.
Thank you so much. So now I want to invite some questions from our students.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am Margarita Hutchins, and I'm currently located in Arlington. I'm also a senior at Arlington Tech Program of Arlington Career Center. My question for you, Mr. Lynch, today is, how did you decide that this is what you're meant to be doing?
There's a lot of conversations now about making sure that you are on the right journey, and that you are following your path and your passions. So I believe that there is that the journey evolves. And I believe in the 80-20 theory, where 80% is a very deliberate action, whether it's getting a trade, whether it's going to college, whether it's seeking a specific career. And I think 20% is what I call emergent. And that is where you're actually experimenting. That's where you're taking another class somewhere else, you're joining a club, you're figuring out other things that may be exciting to you. And you have your primary and your secondary, your deliberate and your emergent strategies. And so that gives you enough room for experimentation, that gives you enough room for curiosity. And that doesn't mean that 5 years later, that what was in that curiosity bucket, that 20% bucket, all of a sudden becomes the new deliberate bucket, becomes the new 80% bucket. It may be a change in career, but you don't get stagnant in one place. You always are thinking about the other components. And you may find after the first career, the second career, even with the curiosity buttons, you may still stay with the primary. And with that primary, you have to make sure that it is not only providing you from a financial perspective, but it's filling your heart and your soul as it relates to what you want to do. And it's very difficult to make that choice day one at 16, 17, 18, 19. So I think there's a reality that it has to evolve over time, but it's hard to make those switches just cold. To go 100% in one direction, I want to be an accountant, and then switch hard to 100%, I want to be a anesthesiologist. So you may need some things that happen in between and really pull on that string and that curiosity so that when you do make a shift, and if you do, that it is effective, that you're utilizing the transferable skills, and you're actually getting to the place where you've really found out what is your passion and what's your hustle.
Mr. Lynch, thank you for joining us to give us this very informative session. My name is Sever Bremer, and I reside in Chicago, Illinois, and I also attend Urban Prep Bronzeville. One of my questions that I have was, what was the path like becoming a CEO of a company / corporation?
The path is that you got to learn. I always tell people that whether it was in a job, whether it was in a board, whether it was in a volunteer situation, I carried somebody's briefcase. I did the work for someone else so that they in turn would tell me what's right, what's wrong, what's effective, and they give you all of the tools. And I think every time you're willing to carry someone's briefcase for a moment, then you're going to learn more than you would from a textbook, from an apprenticeship, or anything else. And I think each time I was able to do that, I slowly but surely was able to get to CEOs. And when I was able to do that, I was able to understand some of the trials and tribulations of what it takes to run a company, the importance of strategy, the importance of teamwork, again, the importance of all the values that I talked about, but from an operational perspective, also understanding what it takes to be mindful of resources, mindful of processes, and then also making sure that, like I said, setting forth the strategic vision for the company.
So now back on to you, Mr. Lynch. Let's get into the fun lightning round. Are you ready for the lightning round, Mr. Lynch?
I am ready.
All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So let's start. The best book you've ever read.
Okay, so I'm going to give you answers. Some of those answers are going to show the fun side of me. Some of the answers are going to be deliberately to make sure that you guys go and read some of these books that are very important. And so you'll get both. Okay, so my favorite book, my best book ever to read, I think it was Ron Chernow's Grant, and that's Ulysses Grant. And so that, to me, was a very, very important book because it gave you a perspective pre-Civil War of what was happening in the country, and then through the eyes of a single leader, post-Civil War, and how we thought we had moved on out of slavery, but yet got caught in the quagmires of Jim Crow and the likes. It's a very, very important book to be able to see that attempt to try to solve a major issue in this country, and how the wound quite didn't come together, and therefore we had another 150 years in which we've been struggling with race and class issues in this country. But this was a great book. The book is nearly 1,000 pages. It takes a while, but if you can grasp the things that are in this, and as you can imagine, it's nonfiction, it gives you a historical context that gives you a very good foundation of what's happening to you, what you're seeing around you, all the things around George Floyd. This gives you a great context and foundation for that.
All right, my next question is one thing that you cannot live without.
Well, it's got to be my family. Not only my immediate family, my wife and my daughter, but I came back to Washington, D.C. so that I could be with my parents and my sister. and I really adore spending time with them and being close to them.
All right. Personal theme song or your favorite song?
Well, I could give you some old school stuff, but my daughter has Bad Bunny, La Playa playing all the time. So all of a sudden, that's my favorite song.
What is your favorite sport?
Basketball. Watch a lot of basketball, both college and professional.
Last TV series you've binge watched?
Binge watched The Godfather of Harlem.
Your favorite part of your day?
In the morning, workouts in the morning, staying healthy.
Favorite movie of all time?
I had to go old school in this one. It's got to be Coming to America.
Who's your personal hero?
Jackie Robinson. He was a trailblazer in 1947. Many of you may or may not know him, being the first African-American to break into the Major League Baseball. His story is incredible about who he is, went to school out in California, served our country, did a lot of things. And so Jackie Robinson to me, oh, also the last thing about Jackie Robinson is that he transitioned from sport into business and really showed me what the transferable skills would be and what were the leadership skills that you could learn in other parts of your life and growing up and how that can be utilized in your final career. So Jackie Robinson at the top.
All right. Your favorite place to travel?
I love the island of Seychelles. It's a small island on the back half of on the east side of Africa, in between Africa and India. It is a great mix of people, but I also learned a lot when I was there that the United States used it as a spy location to spy on the Russians during the Cold War, which is very prevalent right now as we talk about these balloons that are flying over us now. We often forget that the United States was just doing the same thing just 50 years ago.
All right. And my last question for you is a phone app that you use the most?
It's got to be WhatsApp. I mean, everybody's on WhatsApp. I'm not on social media. I'm not on TikTok and the like. So that is a preferred way to communicate with folks. All
right, great. So now, Mr. Lynch, before we end it, I am going to ask two more students about some questions really quick. I'm gonna go with the first name that I do see. I do see Jair Holmes. So please say your name, what school you attend.
Hello, my name is Jair Holmes. I attend Renaissance High School in Detroit, Michigan. And my question is, what's the best financial advice you can give somebody?
Well, as I mentioned before, starting to save early. And there's a couple things that you need to be aware of. My stats aren't exactly right, but they're directionally correct. But African Americans and people of color are the least represented folks in terms of investments, whether it's at the stock market, whether it's at 401k, whether other savings programs that are very important. And as I mentioned earlier, understanding the importance of compounding interest. It's a fairly complicated idea, but if you think about it and you put it in simple terms, stacking money stacks money. And you want your money to make money for you when you're sleeping. And when you're spending money, you're not doing that. So if you're saving early and you're investing early and learning how to invest in things that grow over time, it's very important. I'm not sure how many of you know, but right now, if you go to the bank and you try to open a savings account, the interest rate's probably a 1 to 2%. If you invested in the stock market over the last 10, 15 years, despite some of the ups and downs, you're making 8 to 10%. So if you're making 8 to 10%, you're doubling your money every 7 years. If you have it in a savings or under your mattress or something like that, it's going to take you 50 years to double it. So really understanding how to invest early, always taking a little piece of any change you got and be able to invest it, not just in a savings account, but learn how to invest it. That will pay dividends to you over time.
Hello, Mr. Lynch. I'm Charles Belt. I'm from Chicago. I go to King College Prep. And my question from you is, I've read that you have done projects in areas like Washington, D.C., and especially in Silicon Valley. And my question for you is, how have you navigated and how have you put forward your brand in these highly competitive areas? What advice would you give to somebody who would also want to like operate in highly competitive areas and settings.
Best idea always wins. Cheapest capital always wins. Those are the two things you always got to remember. So you have to have best idea, and if you don't have capital, your idea has to be really good. And with best idea, that means it's proven from all directions, from a risk perspective, from an upside perspective, from an operational perspective, all the things that really need. And I always break it down into who makes lemonade. Lots of people make lemonade. Well, how do you become the best at making lemonade? What is different about your lemonade that's going to sell more? What is different about the cost of your lemonade that gives you a better margin? What's the difference in terms of the corner that you're selling that lemonade? You take those same basic ideas around a lemonade stand and they apply to all components of business. And so best idea on lemonade. I mean, that's hard to think about, but someone thought about it and came up with the best idea of lemonade. Whether it's the amount that you provide, whether it's the glass that you put it in, whether it's where it's marketed. Best idea of how to make lemonade is really what you have to think about in every business case. And then execution of the plan is also very important as well. Everyone nowadays starts with brand. And I don't think brand is best idea. Brand is a function of the idea. It's a function of execution, but it is not best idea. And so you can see that there were lots of things that had brand appeal, that had mass social media appeal. They go up and they come down. Look at companies that are there for a long time. Look at things that continue. They're the ones that are able to leverage brand, and it's because best idea is there. And then once you get into the capital discussion, you'll also realize that cheapest capital often wins as well.
Hi, Mr. Lynch. My name is Ariana Boston. I attend Southeastern High School in Detroit, Michigan. My question is, what are the biggest decisions you have made over the past year, and how are you managing those decisions?
Well, over the past year, we have been able to amass a fairly significant portfolio. And as we saw the clear signs that a recession was coming, as interest rates were rising, we had to become prepared of a basic slowdown in the business. And so you have to do that well in advance of when it happens. So we had started running scenarios as of January of 22, and we started running through those scenarios by the time June and July came around. And as we did that, we were able to be well prepared, and just the basics. You leave dollars in the company to be able to weather tough storms, and we're able to do that now. We also were very clear in communicating with our people about what we can do and how we had been preparing, and that was another way of showing leadership, so that people weren't looking over their shoulder. I've always been taught that if you're spending 20% doing defense, you're really not moving. 80% on offense, you're not really moving forward, because you need to be spending 80, 85, 90% on offense and very little on defense. And so we make sure that we build into the offense resiliency in so many different ways, from a business perspective, from an environmental perspective, and just, in all ways. And so we make sure that we're doing that as a regular course of business, and that prepares us for these downturns.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lynch. This has been a fantastic episode of Leaders Like Me. I appreciate the opportunity to speaking with you, and I'm pretty sure that all the other students have had an excellent experience in talking with you as well. Now, I will send it back to Taylor McCleary for a few closing remarks.
Really great discussion. I hope that you all took what you got from Mr. Lynch, so that you can use this information towards your future. Let's also give our guest Jair Lynch a round of applause. Share some clap emojis in the chat for me. I also encourage you to continue the conversation about what you learned today at your Friday workshops or with your internship program lead or mentor. Thank you to all of our students for participating. It is really appreciated. You all continue to show up and show out, and I love that you're always interested in investing in yourselves. Just a few final reminders. This recording for the Leaders Like Me series will be posted on our Urban Alliance YouTube channel in a few days, so be on the lookout for that. And I also want to encourage our students, please remind your peers and classmates who are rising seniors to get ready to apply for the high school internship program in your region when the application process opens. Before you leave today, I need everyone to stay on camera for a few minutes because we are going to get some quick photos. So just be ready. On the count of 3, I'm going to get some big smiles. Whoever's taking a picture, get ready. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, one more. 1, 2, 3. And then one more. 1, 2, 3. I know that's a little awkward, but y'all did a good job. Thank you, everybody, for this, and have a really good afternoon.